In this video, we are going to be talking about the weather. Specifically, how the spiritually awakened can actually control the weather. I know, sounds crazy, right? My name is Catherine. I'm an energy healer, spiritual coach, and nurse practitioner. If you need personalized coaching or an energy healing from yours truly, then you can go to my website at catherineglassman.com, or you can email me at hello@catherineglassman.com. Now, speaking to all my fellow conspiracy theorists out there, I pretty much bunch myself within that group as well. We all know that weather modification is real. And that isn't actually a conspiracy anyway, because there is just documented proof that that has been going on for a very long time. One very good and very obvious example would be the artificial rain in Dubai. Dubai uses the technology of cloud seeding, which is very popular in the world, to precipitate water out of existing clouds in order to form rain. And in fact, I think it was within this last year, they actually had some flooding, and they actually believe that the flooding, which was the worst flood that to ever happen there in like 75 years, happened because of their artificial rain. It has been documented and proven that they can use lasers to create lightning from existing clouds. It's called like a 1,000,000,000,000-watt laser or something like that. And of course, none other than the CIA have definitely been using weather modification to their own benefit, one of which was called Operation Popeye. This was conducted by the US Air Force, I believe, and it was basically during the Vietnam War, where they were able to extend a monsoon season in Vietnam for like 30 to 45 days. And so when I just did like a simple Google search, their AI answer thing just popped up and just said, yeah, this was a real project. Now, I do want to talk about a woman named Kristen Megan, who is a former environmental specialist for the US Army. She basically took it upon herself to debunk the chemtrail conspiracy theory, but in doing so, she actually proved that chemtrails were actually real. And the way she did it was that she was starting to look into all of the chemicals that were coming into their facility. And she noticed that there were just high amounts of barium, aluminum, just chemicals that they really didn't need, but in like high amounts. And the further she looked into it, the more she started to realize that they actually are spraying chemicals into the sky. And she basically just became a whistleblower for it. And according to freepatentsonline.com, there are over 200 patents for weather modification or geoengineering. So it's safe to say that weather modification isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a real thing that we at least know has been documented and has been a part of projects. Now, the conspiracy theory begins when we start to speculate if they are still actively using that technology to control the weather to become weaponized against humanity. This is where HAARP comes in. HAARP stands for High Frequency Active Auroral High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. I can never remember it, but it is a facility in Alaska. And what they claim is that they use satellites and radio frequency to heat up the ionosphere and to track to see what its reaction is to such experiments. However, there are a lot of people that believe that HAARP actually uses its technology to control the weather and to create major catastrophes out in the world. One of which is allegedly the earthquake in Haiti. So then we fast forward to today, or in recent days. The United States has a presidential election coming up. And we all know that every time there is a presidential election, there is a major event that takes place. It's usually some sort of catastrophe, whether it's involving weather or a terrorist attack or some sort of recession. There's always something that happens. So I, of course, decided to meditate on the information. And of course, like, this information is channeled. And so if it resonates, then great. And if not, that's okay too. This is not based on fact or anything. This is just my personal opinion that I get from meditation. Okay. What I believe is that Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton were intended to be that major catastrophe right before the election. They were really blasting it all over the news. They were really making it a very big deal, which is, you should, if you know that there is going to be a natural disaster to hit a state, then yeah, people should be warned, sure. But this was meant to be that one big thing to really throw humanity off. And although there has been apparently more than 200 people who have died in Hurricane Helene, which is awful, of course, like, there's no taking that away. From what I have seen, the death toll was supposed to be significantly bigger. This was supposed to be way, way worse. And it wasn't. And the reason why is because humanity is starting to wake up. And this video might be a little short because I kind of threw it together very quickly, and it was only because I started to get really emotional and excited from that particular information. Because even from when all of this was starting, I was already suspicious that it was manufactured, right? And it's very similar to what happened to Maui. And it turns out that the residential area in North Carolina that has been destroyed completely just so happens to be a very large lithium deposit, like, within that land. And apparently these residents here that, are on top of this lithium were asked to sell their homes, and nobody would. And so now there are no homes. And there are certain laws where the government is just basically able to do whatever they want once a natural disaster hits a certain area of the country. And there is no rebuilding there because, it's just considered a disaster area now. So regular people like you and I just can't rebuild their homes there anymore. So it seems pretty convenient if one wanted that lithium, right? Kind of similar to Maui. But what does that have to do with spiritually awakened people controlling the weather? Well, this is just a side note, by the way. I actually know someone who can practice telekinesis. Telekinesis, pyrokinesis, aerokinesis, okay? It's like the cartoon or the movie The Airbender, right? Literally controlling the elements. There are people out there that can really do this. And there are people out there that can actually control the weather. But even in that sense, because that is more of a metaphysical / occult practice, that is not necessarily what happened with this hurricane. The information that I got was that because there are so many people, so many Americans waking up to the possibility that the conspiracy theories actually might be real, it is because they are waking up that the consciousness is starting to shift so that these agendas are going to not work anymore. Ugh. And it gives me chills. Americans have become desensitized Again, 2020 and COVID were probably the best thing to happen to us. And the reason why is because it started getting people to start questioning the narrative. People lost a lot of faith in the government, in the healthcare system, just in authority in general. Things were not adding up. Things were not making sense. And now that we have gotten past 2020 and we have seen the repercussions of some of the things that we were forced to do, forced to get, and the negative effects of that, of trusting these authorities, now people are just waking up. And so now they're starting to realize that anytime the media starts to shove something down your throat, people are starting to now back off and say, you know what, I think that this might be propaganda. People are also starting to realize that anytime there is a media outlet, either online or on the TV, and they start talking about conspiracy theories and fact checking and misinformation, people are starting to realize that whatever it is that they're talking about actually is real. It's the opposite of what they are trying to accomplish. So there have been so many news articles to come out about how, Hurricane Milton being manufactured is just a conspiracy theory. People spreading misinformation about the hurricane. Americans are starting to learn that the more they do that, the more suspicious they actually look. And so now, because they were just trying to really get you to be scared and to really pay attention to this hurricane, a lot of people chose to not even pay attention at all. And so it was a combination of people not even caring at this point anymore, and the fact that people are waking up and starting to question the narrative. It's those energies that are starting to shut down these dark agendas. And the way that it's doing this is through the collective consciousness. It's literally because humanity is up leveling their frequency. And that frequency is starting to neutralize the dark energy. It literally makes me emotional. The best person to reflect this is this man who they have named Lieutenant Dan. He basically became famous because he would not leave his boat in Tampa during Hurricane Milton. And I don't know the full story. I think there were some influencers that were trying to pay him or something like that. I don't know anything about that part. But he stayed and he was fine. And he basically just kept telling people that God told him to come to Tampa and that he held that in his heart and that he has his faith in God, and that's why he's not leaving. And I noticed that there were a lot of people that were not leaving because they just were not going to give in. They were not going to let them win. Now, sure, there are some people that didn't leave because they couldn't, but there are a lot of people that chose not to because they're just not going to be pushed around anymore. Now, Lieutenant Dan hasn't said anything about whether he thinks that the hurricane was manufactured, but the fact that he is ex-military, just his demeanor and his belief in God, I would bet money that he probably did find it to be a little suspicious. But who knows? I don't know. But what's so beautiful about Lieutenant Dan getting his 15 minutes of fame is that he said that God told him to come to Tampa. I believe that that really happened, that God really did tell him to come to Tampa so that he can be the reflection of the people now. It is that kind of energy that is winning. I truly believe These hurricanes were meant to be completely devastating, and they were not. Not because, something happened, like there was just a trip in the plan, or, there were some good guys that turned it off. No, I truly think that it's humanity starting to wake up and the frequency elevating. Oh, and it's just so wonderful because all of these agendas, all of these attempts to attack humanity are falling apart. And they're not only are they falling apart, but they're backfiring. They're just making people wake up even more. But the one message that was really driving home during my meditation, and it's funny because they were like giving me this visual of like a celebration, and I understand that there was still a lot of damage and that, many people died. The celebratory part is that it was humanity that did it. There was really no intervening from any higher sources, interdimensional beings, right? There were no outside forces. It was humanity that did it. And of course, you can take all this information or leave it, but I mean, yeah. But the driving message that they kept saying was, finally, you're starting to realize how powerful you actually are. I'm going to get emotional. They just kept saying, you guys are very special. You are very, very special. You have the power to change these things. You, as a matter of fact, it turns out, have the power to control the weather. And who knows? Maybe it wasn't us that neutralized the hurricane. Maybe it was just supposed to happen this way. Maybe this was just, exactly how it was supposed to turn out. But what if we actually did that? While all of this was happening, it reminded me of this Simpsons Halloween special. Okay, I really liked The Simpsons when I was growing up. In this particular episode, Homer, the big lard lad donut guy at the donut shop came to life. And Homer decided to steal his giant donut. Okay. So Homer steals his giant donut. The lard lad guy gets upset and he starts to attack the people and he's looking for his donut. And then all of the other billboard people start to come to life and they're just attacking the town, okay? And strangely enough, there was one particular character that was like destroying the city too, and it was the devil, which didn't make sense because there was no billboard of the devil. The devil was just thrown in there, which I found interesting. But the way that they defeated these monsters was by not looking at them. And they created a song, and the song was like, just don't look, just don't look. And as long as nobody looked at the chaos, looked at the destruction and just the devastation, they just started to die because they were losing their power. And they say that the Simpsons can predict things, but we all know that that's just predictive programming. But it's just interesting that I had that particular memory when all of this was happening. And what's even more interesting, at least for me anyway, personally, is I have been having just a lot of things break on me recently. Had to get a new phone, had to get a new car battery, just constantly having to fix things around the house. It's just one thing after another. And at some point, I got really upset and frustrated. And in that moment, I learned that I just needed to surrender and just be grateful for what I have, but just surrender to the chaos because the chaos isn't going anywhere. So I may as well just adjust my reaction to the chaos And the way that I was adjusting was by saying that I don't care. I was like, I don't care. I don't care. Do what you're going to do, right? I was like, if something happens to me here, I don't care. Because if I'm supposed to be here, then the universe, God, source frequency will make it happen for me. If I'm actually supposed to be here. So I'm riding on faith now. So bring it. I'm not scared. So as I'm going through my own personal thing, all of this happens. And then I see Lieutenant Dan. And it's a very cool reflection. And if there's anything that you take away from this video, it's that, one, we're winning. And two, we are significantly more powerful than we even realize. And I think we're starting to learn that. And pretty soon, they're going to learn it too. And so, keep up the good work. We are seriously paving the way to the new Earth. And we're foiling their plans. And it's very, very exciting. So, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Consider subscribing, and I will see you next time. Bye.